The stars have very little to do with this particular story. Wait, what?
The game has been rigged. Forget all the rules. Stop believing what you're told. All this hate that I feel for you, my untrue enemy. Once was blind, but now I see. It makes me question why.
So after my initial review of Mega Man Star Force, I was specifically warned about Mega Man Star Force 2 being the weakest of the trilogy, and had a bit of a hesitation going in because, you know, I don't want to play a bad game, especially since I just got done playing a pretty good one. The first Star Force was actually very fun. I liked it. Admittedly, the second game turned out to be actually a lot better than I expected, mostly because everyone kept telling me it was bad. I had a negative opinion going in because a bunch of comments, people saying it was the worst. Is it weaker than the first game? Yes. And it is probably, based off of what I've been told as of now, the weakest of the trilogy, but I still actually wound up enjoying it quite a bit. It still has everything you would want and enjoy about Star Force. There are several problems that I am going to point out, but I want to stress right here from the get-go that I did actually enjoy it, and if you are playing Star Force, you can skip over 2, but I actually would encourage you not to do that, because you might be missing out on something actually quite fun. First of all, from a gameplay perspective, not that much has changed in terms of the core mechanics. The battle system remains pretty much identical to the first game. It's still fun, there's some new chips to utilize and things like that, but for the most part, it's still the same basic concept, as well as the overworld. Moving around and visually, the game is pretty much the same as well, which is fine, because the first game was fine in that regard, and this is a pretty immediate sequel that takes place only a few months after the end of the first game too, from a narrative perspective. And I did actually like some of the quality of life improvements with the game, as there were some minor changes in terms of how the game is laid out that I actually think makes it a little bit better. The big one that I feel is that in the first game, the EM paths and the real overworld, the real world, were completely separate from each other. Whenever you went to a point to, you know, turn into Mega Man, you always got sent to the EM path, and you couldn't actually walk in the real world at all. This was weird for a few reasons. For one thing, other EM beings could do that, and for two, it just felt like Battle Network in that regard because you were literally teleporting to a different plane of existence. But now, you actually stay in the same spot whenever you turn into Mega Man, and yeah, you are in electromagnetic form, but the paths are united. So you can walk around in the real world as Mega Man, as well as walk on the EM path, although not everyone can see you in EM form because, you know, you're an EM being. You're supposed to be invisible to most people. This new layout can actually make it easier to traverse certain areas and get to certain points. Instead of walking through a maze of the EM paths all the time to get anywhere as Mega Man, now you can actually utilize the real world in this regard and get to certain spots quicker. There are some limitations because you can't interact with everything in the real world as Mega Man, like elevators for example, so there are still times where you have to take the EM path to get some places, but still, it is a nice change that I think makes the world feel a little bit more immersive and make more sense in that element. In terms of the narrative, well, one of the complaints with the game is that the narrative is entirely disconnected from the first game. Yeah, you're still Geostellar, and you're still working with Omega to become Mega Man, but the actual story has completely different villains with a completely different lore set that focuses on the prehistoric history of Earth, showing that EM beings have actually existed on this planet too. It doesn't have much to do with the Athenians, Amians, alien thing we had from the first game. No. But, on its own, it actually is quite interesting. I like the plot, I did. I actually was legitimately interested in hearing this story. It didn't have much to do with the first game's story, but I like the idea of taking it in a different direction and expanding on the lore of electromagnetic beings as a whole. Did it feel like it kind of came out of left field? Yes, But I still liked it, I still was interested, I still was enthralled by it. It is a good narrative. It just has little to do with the first game, so you don't necessarily even need to play the first game before you play this, outside of getting the introduction of a few of the major characters. Geo and his friends all return here, and yeah, they're friends now, they're not just bullies anymore, because they decided to be friends with him after they figured out that he was Mega Man, which really doesn't sit well with me. Like, yeah, some of them are pretty cool to him now, but I feel like they were only friends with him to begin with because they found out he was a superhero. If Geo had just been Geo, would they really be his friends? Like, you know, that's what bothers me, and why Sonya is still the best one, because she liked Geo before she knew he was Mega Man. She likes Geo for Geo. Sonya is best girl, and they are still my OTP and must be protected at all costs. But what's hilarious about Geo is how easy he finds these celebrity girlfriends, because Sonya is an international super, you know, pop star singer. And in this game, he winds up meeting an internationally famous skiing girl and immediately becomes friends with her, with no hiccups at all. You know, for a socially awkward dork who doesn't like making friends, who likes to push people away, historically, Geo is really good at just walking in to international celebrities who desperately want to be his friend. And I know you're saying, well, it only happened twice, and yeah, if Geo had a nickel for every time he made friends with a famous celebrity girl, he'd have 2 nickels, but it's just really weird that it's happened twice now, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, the actual narrative, like I said, is still very good, with solid villains who are hilariously unsubtle, though that's kind of par for the course with these games overall, if I'm being honest. Like I said, I genuinely liked the game, playing it, going through, doing the cards, and everything else. I really did enjoy, but this world has some issues, and the game itself has some issues that I need to address. For one thing, the padding in this game is out of control. And I mean, it's bad. So bad. Like early Battle Network game bad. I guess with the introduction of the fact that they allowed you to walk as an EM being in the real world, they realized that certain areas were going to be a lot shorter. So they made sure to pad this game out with unnecessary nonsense like crazy. And I hate that. Do you have any idea how many stupid friggin' times I get stopped full tilt in the narrative so I could help out this random dude who's like, I need this item, go here to this place and bring back the item. It happens more than once, and sometimes at the most inconvenient of times. The one that really got me is right after Geo's friends get kidnapped and he's having a bit of an existential crisis about the fact that maybe he's not a really good hero because he failed to prevent this. Before you can actually progress this actually quite important part of the story that I feel like would be, you know, kind of mission critical with the whole kidnapped children angle, Geo has to help out a repairman fix a doghouse. The repairman I love because he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe Mega Man can help me. This dude has one job, and that is fixing things. And he wants an electromagnetic superhero to step in and do it for him. This is the kind of lazy, handout-asking individual that the Republicans tried to warn us about. Like, are you kidding me? Fix the doghouse yourself. I am busy. But what drives me crazy is both Geo and Omega make no reservations about this. They have no hesitation. At no point are either of them like, hey, maybe we should actually focus on finding our kidnapped friends rather than help out this idiot. But no, I guess we have to do everything for everyone in this town. And it happens all the time. The narrative isn't a bad narrative. It's constantly just shoved forcefully out of the way for these stupid nonsense moments that have nothing to do with anything and have no benefit other than to specifically waste your friggin' time. Also, let's talk about link points because, yo, I don't think they thought this through. Okay, so the brother band thing that I mentioned in the first game is still here, but you have a new star carrier thing, and with that upgrade comes link points. Link points are basically bonus points you get for having more really close friends. It sounds like a weird, stupid minigame in this universe's social network of choice, and to a degree, yes, that is true, but the amount of influence on society the link points have is deeply disturbing, because this future is supposed to be portrayed as an ideal future, where people don't really want for anything. Everyone has a solid job, everyone is happy, everyone has minimal problems. You know, it's a nice, pretty much idealistic Star Trek-esque future, minus the whole alien invader thing. But, I disagree, as this is a horrific dystopian world where people are judged by the amount of social points, literal social points, that they have. And I bring this up solely because the link points are not just a gameplay artificial padding mechanic. Because if they were, I probably wouldn't have much to say about them. At face value, it doesn't seem like a big deal, because part of the link points is being able to give Omega in particular various upgrades, such as extra health or extra damage or things like that. You could also change his weapon, which is a nice little RPG mechanic, to again upgrade him a little bit. The link points directly relate to the health-like upgrades and things of that nature, and if it were just that, I probably wouldn't have an issue, but it isn't. They directly play into the real world too. There are certain shops that say you can only get this free gift if you have a certain number of link points, ergo, a certain number of social credit. The hotel at one point straight up says they've denied people from staying there who have less than 50 link points, and the real alarming thing about this is that that can't be the only case of that happening, and certain links with people are worth more than others. What kind of dystopian nightmare is this? Because Twitter's all about complaining about capitalism, and this is not hardcore dystopian capitalism. That was Cyberpunk 2077, which, fair enough. But this can't be, because shops are literally denying people from giving them money because they're not worth enough on the social credit score. Is this out of control socialism? Is that where we're at with this? I don't even know where to begin, but this is horrific. It's like if social media suddenly literally ruled the world and arbitrarily decided who's worth more than others based off of their social credit score. Is this some kind of social commentary regarding cancel culture, where people can destroy other people's lives based on one mistake they made 10 years ago? I know some mistakes are more egregious than others, and some people totally deserve what they get in this regard. I'm not trying to get all political with you, but even with modern cancel culture and how the internet works, like, people can still go to the grocery store and shop in peace and actually get food. But in this world, it seems to imply that if you don't have a certain number of link points, there are certain places you just can't go. Can you not buy food? Can you not buy a house? Can you not get a place to live? Can you not afford to function in society without having friends? What if you've literally done nothing wrong? You're just socially awkward as heck. What if you just don't like people? What if you just don't have that many friends? Suddenly all sorts of places are completely out of your access purely because you are an antisocial edgelord, which I take very personally, but my point here is, what the heck kind of world is this where this is allowed to happen? So that means that everyone is now required to have one of these devices, because without them they won't have any link points at all, and even when you do, you have to have a certain number of friends and maintain those friends, otherwise you won't be able to function fully in this hardcore dystopian nightmare, and the game never draws attention to it, because I get the focus here and the idea was just to show the superpower of friendship. It really is meant to be that innocent, and it really is just a gameplay mechanic, but because it has so much basis in the major narrative and actually blocks things off from you, it implies this world is way more dystopian than one would think. This is actually not an ideal future at all, and is one that is run by a social media empire who demands a certain number of friends, and if you aren't a popular cool kid, you are worthless to this world. You mean nothing here. Why is it such a major focus of the game? If it was just relating to equipment, again, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal to me. But because it has so much influence in the rest of the world as a whole, it's actually deeply unsettling to me. I don't like this universe anymore. I think that things are actually horrible here, and that everyone has just kind of decided to accept the status quo and that this is just the way things are now. But again, the narrative doesn't focus on that. It focuses on the ancients and the fact that you're Mega Man. And in that regard, it is still good and very fun. It has its funny moments and its exciting moments and sad moments. It actually is a pretty well-written story, and the game is still fun to play. But the padding is what really kills the experience. I concede I am overthinking the LP thing. I understand that. That's probably me, letting my imagination run wild. But the padding really does drive me nuts. I don't think the random encounters are any worse than the first game, and they were already pretty bad, but I didn't mind them nearly as much as being deliberately stalled out of my gameplay experience. Just let me enjoy the story. Again, much like the first game, the game is still pretty long even without the padding. They're just wasting your time. And if it was an interesting diversion, I might be down for that, for something amusing, because, you know, Cyber Sleuth did that on occasion with a weird side story, but they were always funny and enjoyable. Here, it's always something stupid and uninteresting. That said though, as I stress, I did actually like the game. There's actually two different versions of it, Zerker Saurian and Zerker Ninja. And by two, I mean three, because no matter which one you get, Zerker is always an option. You can actually select it before the game even starts. The other option is different based on which version, which implies to me that what happened was that they originally meant to do three different versions, just like the first game, but probably for budgetary reasons they could only afford to do two, but still wanted to use all three forms, because that's pretty much the differences between them, is what tribe you're dealing with and what super form you get. That's the major difference. Of course, I went with Saurian, because unspeakable, unquenchable fire, and I like dinosaurs. But it's just weird that you always get Zerker no matter what. The only difference is between Ninja and Saurian, but either way though, yeah, there are different versions of the game, but you know, same overall narrative. I concede that it might be the weakest of the three, but there are only three to compare it to when it comes to the Star Force games, and I haven't quite played 3 yet, so it's hard for me to judge based off of that, though I have been told 3 is the best, so you have my expectations pretty high, so if it disappoints, I'm gonna let you know. But I do think 2 isn't that bad. I still think it was fun. I still liked it. And I still think if you like the original Star Force and are looking for more, yeah, this is probably worth playing. It's not so bad that I would recommend skipping it entirely. Just know that you're in for some padding in certain points, and that this world is turning into a dystopian nightmare. So with that, till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.